The Haunting of Blackstone Keep. In the grim heart of Blackstone Keep, a medieval fortress perched on a rocky cliff, lay a dungeon known for its notorious reputation. The stone walls were thick and cold, a testament to the countless prisoners who had been sentenced to its depths. Many had entered, but few had emerged. Those who did were often left broken by their experiences. One stormy night, a new prisoner was dragged into the dungeon, Edric, a young man accused of treason against the crown. As the heavy iron door clanged shut behind him, he felt the chill of despair wrap around him like an icy cloak. The flickering torchlight barely illuminated the narrow space, revealing the damp, grimy walls and the fetid smell of decay. Edric was not alone. Other prisoners, gaunt and hollow-eyed, huddled in the corners, whispering to one another in hushed tones. They spoke of the dungeon's dark history, of those who had perished within its confines, men who had met gruesome ends, their souls trapped in a never-ending torment. "Don't listen to them," one prisoner warned, his voice trembling. "They'll come for you if you do." Ignoring the warning, Edric lay on the cold stone floor, exhaustion washing over him. That night, he was awakened by a low murmuring that crept through the darkness. It was a voice like an echo from the past, filled with sorrow and anger. "You shouldn't be here." As the days passed, Edric began to notice strange occurrences. That night, he felt an unseen presence watching him, a cold breath against his neck, and the sound of chains rattling in the distance. The other prisoners grew increasingly agitated, their eyes darting nervously around the cell. One evening, the flickering torchlight revealed a figure emerging from the shadows, a spectral form clad in tattered rags, face obscured by a veil of darkness. The apparition glided toward Edric, its eyes glowing with an ethereal light. "Help us," it whispered, each word laced with anguish. "We are bound here by the sins of living." Edric felt a surge of fear, but also a strange compulsion to listen. The figure reached out, its fingers brushing against his arm, sending a jolt of ice through his veins. In that moment, visions flooded his mind, images of torment, betrayal, and death. He saw the faces of those who had suffered in this very dungeon, their cries resonating in his soul. Determined to understand, Edric began to piece together the stories of the day. He learned of a cruel warden who took pleasure in pain, of prisoners who had been starved and tortured, their spirits now restless, forever bound to the place of their suffering. The more he uncovered, the more the voices grew insistent, filling his mind with their despair. One fateful night, the dungeon was alive with a cacophony of wails and mournful cries. The walls seemed to pulse with energy, and the oppressive air became thick with sorrow. Edric stood in the center of his cell, heart racing as the spectral figures materialized around him, their faces twisted in agony. "You must set us free," they implored, their voices a haunting chorus. "Only then can we find peace." With newfound resolve, Edric sought a way to confront the warden. He had to unveil the truth of the dungeon's horrors, to expose the cruelty that had trapped so many souls. Gathering the remaining prisoners, he shared his plan, igniting a flicker of hope. When the warden next entered the dungeon, Edric stood before him, trembling but defiant. "You will answer for your crimes," he shouted, rallying the others behind him. The warden laughed, a cold and mocking sound that echoed off the stone walls. "You think you can defy me? You're nothing but vermin." But as he raised his whip, the air crackled with energy. The spirits surged forth, a whirlwind of ethereal rage. They enveloped the warden, his laughter turning to screams as he was pulled into the very depths of his own hell. As the warden vanished, the weight of despair lifted from the dungeon. The ghostly figures began to fade, their expressions transforming from anguish to gratitude. "Thank you," they whispered, their voices now a gentle breeze. "We are free." Edric watched as the last of the spirits dissipated, leaving behind a silence that felt almost sacred. The dungeon, once a place of torment, now held a sense of peace. Though he remained a prisoner, he felt a strange comfort in knowing he had helped to release those who had suffered before him. But as the days turned into weeks, Edric realized that the dungeon still held secrets. The air was still thick with history, and though the spirits had found peace, the echoes of their pain lingered. He understood that Blackstone Keep would never truly forget